everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm so happy to see you here for my first turquoise brain vlog. As some of you might know, I'm autistic, but how do you know this? And how does it affect me? Maybe more importantly, how does my dog help me? Curious? Stay tuned. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. So there are many variations when it comes to the autism spectrum disorder, which is what it's called today, according to the DSM-5, the Psychiatric Handbook for Diagnoses. However, I was diagnosed before 2013, when there were still many different types of autism. The one I have is called Asperger's syndrome. So what this basically means is that my symptoms are less severe, and many people with Asperger's can be high functioning. It's basically just a mild form of autism, and I just have some difficulties when it comes to social interaction. My brain works a little different than people without autism. When I was only 3 years old, my parents noticed that I was developing differently than most kids around my age. For example, I actually learned the basic stuff pretty quickly, such as walking, potty training, eating by myself. I even taught myself how to read and how to write when I was only 2 years old, out of boredom. However, I didn't speak until I was like 2 years old, and when I did speak, my parents noticed that I had a pretty remarkable word choice. For example, my first word was stethoscope. I mean, what? Anyways, I didn't speak at the daycare center I was going to, which my mom found out one day. Whereas at home, I just couldn't stop talking. I was so full of energy that my parents initially thought that I had ADHD. So they took me to my GP, who referred us to a mental health care center um, to figure it out. In the end, I was not diagnosed with ADHD, but there were suspicions of Asperger's syndrome. But because I was still so young, I was 3 years old only, the doctor just decided not to put a label to it, and just figure out what I needed, and just go from there. And we never really talked about it at home. So I just thought that all the therapy I was going to was just normal, and that every kid around my age went to it. So I didn't even hear about autism until I was 12 years old. And when I found out what it meant, I was convinced that I did not have it. Speaking of that, that might have to do with the fact of how I perceived what autism meant. And there are still so many people out there who have this stereotypical image of what autism is. Yes, we definitely have our difficulties, but I mean, who doesn't, right? And yes, there are people out there on the spectrum who have it harder than others. But I mean, isn't that just life? I mean, yes, it it takes a lot of work, but in the end, it's perfectly normal to or not normal, perfectly possible, um, to just live life uh, that's perfect for you, um, and to learn how to live with such difficulties and basically turn them around in a way that it helps you. Um, Now, what exactly does that mean? Oh, and by the way, I ultimately got my diagnosis when I was 17 years old. When I was younger, I had trouble making eye contact. It made me feel super uncomfortable, and I just blankly stared to the ground. I learned that it's inappropriate not to look people in the eye when you're having a conversation. So I practiced in doing that, and now I always look people in the eye, although I sometimes look away when I'm thinking. Does it make me feel uncomfortable now? Yes, sometimes, but I can cope with that now. A lot of times when someone talked to me or asked me to do something, I didn't know what to do or what the other person meant exactly. So I just stared and asked all these questions in my head, but I was too shy to actually ask them. Nowadays, I know almost instantly what the other person means, and if not, well, that's okay too. I just ask them. But I did have to learn how to ask simple questions like these. I did ask a lot of questions when it comes to philosophical questions, though. Some people might think that people with autism don't show any emotions or aren't empathetic, but that's far from the truth in my case. I mean, I definitely show emotions, and I know what when other people are sad or angry or anything like that. And I often hear that I might be too empathetic, actually. When it comes to actual conversations, I used to have trouble to keep a conversation going because I didn't know what to say or I was worrying too much about what the other person might think of me. Also, I was only interested in talking about a few topics. In my case, mostly World War II or history in general. I didn't notice when people were bored or didn't listen anymore because I was so excited about this topic that I just didn't understand why other people, especially my age, didn't think it was interesting enough to talk about. So, due to the lack of same interests, it was pretty difficult to get friends around my age, which led to loneliness. So, I always tend to hang out more with older people. But today, I'm interested I'm interested in talking about a lot of topics, and I do notice when people are bored. I also practiced a lot to keep a conversation going, and I'm still learning to appreciate short breaks between conversations. I also ask a lot more questions to give someone else a chance to talk as well, whereas I used to just keep going on and going on about my topic. Another symptom is that I don't like change, which was worse when I was younger. For example, I had these play chairs with each a different color, and when you switched places, I went absolutely crazy. I could not handle that at all. Now, that's when I was very little, and it's a somewhat extreme example. Um, so that's definitely not the case anymore. Um, I can handle much smaller changes um, or such smaller changes a lot better nowadays. Um, and I actually encourage change now to a certain extent. Um, However, I still have trouble with bigger changes, such as moving, which in my case I did quite a lot in my life. Um, or change in schools or things like that. Basically, bigger changes. Um, and I also get bored quite easily. Um, so I'm always looking for something new, anyways. But at the same time, I prefer listening to the same music over and over again. So that's basically how it is now. Even though I'm so much more comfortable nowadays to hang out with people and to just have a lengthy conversation or anything like that, um, it's it's still a bit more difficult for me um, to do so and to. I mean, it takes a lot of energy still to just keep going without having a mental breakdown or something like that. Um, and I'm definitely a people pleaser. Um, and I just find it hard to set boundaries for myself. Um, so what often happens is that I'm so overwhelmed all of a sudden, and all I can do is basically lay in bed and cry. I literally cannot do anything at all anymore. No, nada. Um, and when that happens, every single sound or vision, um, literally hurts my body for real. People who know me know that I cannot live without music, but in such a moment, I can't stand it. But I don't like to show other people when it happens, so I just usually withdraw myself from any kind of social interaction whatsoever. I find it way easier to connect through social media or through writing in general because I can think a little longer about what I want to say and also think about what the other person actually said. Because with most people on the autism spectrum, um, the way how they perceive things can be different, and it might take a little longer for us to understand what was being said. I don't know, it's just easier through social media, but I do enjoy hanging out with friends too. When it comes to me, and I'm sure there's many more people out there on the spectrum who can relate to this, is that I'm hypersensitive to noises. This basically means that every single sound that enters my brain has the exact same volume, and I don't have a filter. So I can basically have a conversation with you and hear the clock ticking in the back, or other people talking, or maybe birds when it's outside. Um, and this actually makes it so much harder to have a conversation with someone because it requires a lot of energy and a lot of focus. Um, and it doesn't help that I have hearing aids as well. So what basically helps me is to just listen to music with noise cancelling headphones. I mean, they're absolutely amazing, and I would recommend it to everyone who has issues with hypersensitivity or something like that. Um, the ideal way what actually helps me is just go for a walk, put on my headphones, listen to great music, or any kind of music that you like, um, and preferably through the woods and just breathe in fresh air. People with autism may take things literally, but this doesn't have to be the case for everyone. When I was younger, I literally took everything seriously, and I didn't even comprehend a joke and I didn't understand nor recognize sarcasm at all. Um, and many people found this super funny actually, and they just fired a lot of jokes in my way, to which I would answer in a serious way. Um, but nowadays I actually enjoy making jokes, and I myself use sarcasm a lot now. And now my dog, Coda. He's my absolute everything, and he's helped me in so many more ways than I could have ever imagined. When I'm sad, he comforts me. When I'm angry, he reflects my behavior by acting crazy himself. When I'm triggered, he becomes super calm and just lays next to me. And whenever I'm surrounded by many people and I get uncomfortable or nervous or anything like that, I can just focus on him. And he even taught me how to open my mouth and stand up for myself. And I just absolutely love him. I mean, I really enjoy training him and just playing around with him. And I just can't imagine my life without him anymore. Many people who are on the autism spectrum don't just have autism. It's actually very common for us to have comorbid issues, such as depression or even eating disorders. And this also affects me. Want to know more about that? Please subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Instagram and join my Facebook group Turquoise Brain. You can find both links on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next week for another video. See ya!